Hello and welcome to the 13th episode of Two Wizards and a Mic. I am Shane, and to my right or left is...
Andrew.
And we are going to talk about D&D, because that's what this show is all about. We want to thank people who have been giving us feedback and giving us all kinds of suggestions, and we are following every single one and ignoring all of them at the same time. So there you go. And this week, our topic is dragons. We're going to be talking deep dragons, all kinds of colored dragons, all kinds of metally and slimy dragons. But did you want to tell people something first, or should I? We should keep that hush hush just a little bit longer.
No, I think it's time to tell them. The first thing actually is that we're now in podcast form, correct?
That is right. You can find us in audio format on, well, as of today, a lot of different platforms. You can, of course, find all those links in the doobly-doo down below, which I will send to Andrew later. And and that's basically, if you just want to hear our sultry tones and not see us, we hooked you up.
All right. So yeah, an important announcement. I know some people have asked for that. So now, yeah, if you want, you don't have to watch us. You can just listen. The important announcement today, otherwise, is that in a week, our next Kickstarter will launch. So we have a series of books called the Monster Series. We've made 4 of them. The 4th book, Monsters of the Wilderness, just came out and is available. And all those books are in the links below. So now we're making the 5th book, which is a return to Feyland, which was the first book we did. However, this time, Feyland is a lot stranger. And it's
Da,
not really,
da.
it's not just like the first Feyland book we did was really an A to Z monster book without a lot of lore and extra resources. There's some. And as we've done the books more and more, people have wanted more of a campaign book. So that's what we've done. And this time you'll have maps of Feyland, tons of resources, and it will be a bit of a merge of a bit of Shadowfell, Shadowland sort of energy and Feyland. So because I know some people have wanted that as well. So it's going to be something very new. On one hand, it can be kind of a fairy tale place, and you can use those kind of creatures. On the other hand, we're going to introduce an epic war between the evil Unseelie Court and the good Seelie Court. So you have, it's really old school D&D if you want, or something more modern as well, and timeless with a fairy tale. So next Tuesday we'll launch. We'll put the links below. Shortly we'll have a link where you can sign up to be notified of the launch. So we'll put that link. It should be in the next few hours. I should get that, and we'll put that in the links below as well. So yeah,
It looks
Monsters of
very
Feyland
pretty.
2. There it is.
The Well
Kickstarter.
of Dreams.
That's right. That's right. The Well of Dreams has been corrupted. An epic war is broken out. And there's also this big fairy tale element to it. And we'll have a wide range of creatures from small, low level CR creatures to massive creatures as well. And and we'll do a lot of things that we expand on what we did before. In fact, we're going to bring back a few favorites in that book, few monsters, and we'll bring them back in a new form. Like the
Oh,
Frog
sweet.
Witch was a big hit. So we're going to bring her back bigger and better. And I've already seen the art for that, and that is spectacular what Travis did. Travers Hansen is back as our artist, Gordon McAlpin as the layout guru, and a lot more. He does the videos and everything. And then Sarah is going to help, Sarah Bagshaw, with editing as well. And we're going to bring back the Hatter as well in a much more powerful form. So a lot of the Arc Fae we had before, we're going to enhance quite a bit. So yeah, I'm
Nice.
really, really excited. So a fair bit of the art is done, and we'll have a downloadable free booklet for people to look at one of the sections of the book. That'll be on the Kickstarter page. And on this YouTube channel, we already have the first trailer as well.
Yeah, which is actually very cool because very rarely do you get to see book trailers. They've sort of had these little pockets of publishers that make a whole bunch and then they don't make any after a while, then they make a whole bunch. And
Yeah.
I gotta say, I'm behind because you get to show off. I mean, specifically with this book with so much art in it, you get to show that kind of stuff off and highlight it. And I gotta say, I like the fact that you give the books like that, the subtitle for
Mm.
each of them because I was looking actually at a whole bunch of different, sort of monster manuals online, and they were pretty boring. Like they were like book two, book three, book four, kind of like how Wizards has been doing it or TSR back in the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you actually have thrown in these things, which I really like. So, and I had no
Yeah.
idea that it was going to be Phalanx, so I'm very excited about this.
Yeah. Yeah. Some people are surprised, but we feel like there's a lot more to do with that setting. And even though we made books with other settings, we kept coming back to having Fey creatures many times. Like there's many, many Fey in the Wilderness book. And it's our first love, really, are these kind of, and it matches Travis's art so well. This sort of whimsical, humorous, um, very, Alice in Wonderland, Tim Burton kind of energy going on, and
Yeah.
like the uh, Miyazaki films too. There's a bit of that is going to be going on as well, and a lot of that really is because of the backers of the Kickstarter. They said we want more of a campaign book, and then so we've really added that flavor to them, and then given them a story where if you want to use that story, you can, or you can just choose monsters from a collection like the traditional way.
Right. Right. That's actually kind of cool because a lot of monsters and creatures, I like to do it so that the creatures are somewhat organic to the environment, so that it's, you're not running into cool monster X just because it's cool. And it's like,
Yeah.
we're in a desert and that's a water dwelling monster. I guess it's cool, but why was it
Yeah.
here? We've killed it, but there's no reason. So I like a lot of that kind of stuff. Like, a
Yeah.
portal from another realm, like in the middle of somewhere that you might not see those creatures, but they fell out or found their way
Right.
through, and or hey, I mean, like the regions in the books and stuff like that are really crucial to that kind of stuff. So,
Yeah.
uh, but yeah, I'm excited.
Cool.
And
Yeah.
if everyone else isn't excited, I'm gonna come to your home and I'm gonna make you excited about this next book. I'll just stand there at your front door and be like, "Are you excited yet? Are you excited yet? Phalanx too? Are you? You're gonna get it, right?" It's so creepy, but awesome at the same time. But dragons.
Yes. So we've mentioned a few times the term archetype. Now, dragons are the perfect example. So here's something that is part of our collective unconscious, this deep, some usually dark monster. And all over the world, there are myths, stories about dragons, and it's part, if you tell somebody the word dragon, or even if you just show the silhouette of the creature, or,
Yeah,
and all over the world, all, totally different cultures, dragons are there. And so that's a perfect example of an archetype, which, 1,000 years ago was there, 1,000 years from now will still be there. It doesn't matter if we have flying cars, it's still going to be in our consciousness, right? And so there's famous dragons, of course. The first one I always think of is Smog from The Hobbit. This
I think that's
incredibly,
most people's like first encounter with a dragon in any reading growing up. I mean, that
yeah,
Smaug. That's
yeah,
that's the thing.
a lot of people for sure in the western part of the world. Yeah, that was one of my earliest dragons, and incredibly powerful. Has this huge dragon horde, the very archetypal fire breathing dragon, right?
Yeah,
Um, then there's Maleficent. She's actually an evil fairy, but she can change into a dragon, and that's a big part of Sleeping Beauty, which is a very classic movie and a very classic image of her as this big black dragon. Um,
yeah.
then, of course, there's a series of movies in the 80s, or a bunch of them. Dragons became a big thing. Uh, there's Dragonheart and Dragon Slayer, which are these very 80s adventure movies. And if
Dragon
you watch,
Slayer was like replay, rewind all the way on the videotape, play it again. I
yeah,
that was an amazing one.
yeah, and if you watch the effects now, they pale in comparison to what they can do
Oh
now.
god, yeah.
I especially think of Dragon Heart, like the dragon look, it doesn't look very realistic.
With the
Then
Scottish
Dragon,
dragon.
yeah, exactly. I think It's Sean Connery, right? Is the voice.
Yeah, is the
Yeah,
voice. It
and
was a
then
big deal back then.
yeah, and Dennis Quaid is the
Oh my God,
hero.
was it Dennis Quaid? Wow.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. Not don't confuse him with Randy Quaid as the
Yeah,
hero of
not Randy Quaid.
Dragonland. That would be a totally different movie. And then, of course, the Dragonland series of books and adventures for TSR for D&D, which was
Yeah.
filled with dragons. There's Haku and Spirited Away, one of the Miyazaki movies, who we do a tribute to in our this new book coming up. Falcor from Neverending Story, very classic, kind of a more
The
cuddly version
Luck
of a dragon.
Dragon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then in Harry Potter, more recently, the Hungarian Horntail and a few others in that story. Toothless from the How to Train a Dragon movie series, which is popular. It's kind of after my time, but I know a lot of people are really into it. And of
It's pretty
course,
big in this household, to a certain degree. The
really,
films, anyway. At least
really,
the first one, yeah.
oh,
The other is the addict, but yeah, I mean, we have a few plushies around here and a few T-shirts.
oh,
And that
okay,
kind
all
of thing,
right.
yeah.
I'm starting to see a trend because I heard stuff about Lilo and Stitch, and now How to
Oh
Train a
yeah.
Dragon. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So the other one is that book series by that guy who writes books that takes a long time, and the series didn't end
What's his
very well.
name?
The HBO series,
The
Game
guy.
of Thorns,
Game of
Game of
Dragons.
Thorns.
No, that's not it.
So
Game
yeah,
of.
I guess that one has some dragons in it, but I don't know that story at all. So um,
There was a three dragons, I think, if I
okay,
remember correctly.
all right,
Um, I'm only partway through like the second book, so
okay,
it's taking me a while to read them as opposed to him writing them. So
right. So one of the great things about dragons is role playing them because we mentioned a few episodes ago that, at lower levels, usually the monsters aren't that intelligent. It takes, because if they were, the players would get wiped out all the time. But
yeah,
as you get more and more powerful, you can deal with more and more intelligent and powerful creatures. And, one of the most powerful really are dragons. And because they're so smart, it's actually a lot of fun to role play them. And they can have really interesting personalities. They often speak multiple languages. And you can use their voice to kind of foreshadow them. I did that this weekend when we played um, with Shane's group. They suddenly heard this voice through the woods and wondered, what is this booming voice talking to them? And it turned out to be a dragon.
I'm
So
going to eat you. Oh, great! Thanks for
yeah,
that.
exactly. That's what he pretty much said. So in D&D now in 5th edition, we've got wormlings, which are medium-sized dragons, and they're 1 to 5 years old. And they're, even for low-level parties, those are actually a bit of a handful. Then you've got young dragons, which are large size. These are up to 100 years old. And that's the dragon I think that's the dragon you dealt with on the weekend, which is still
It was
pretty
that sort
tough.
of age. Oh yeah,
Then
it
you have,
actually took us a while to take it down. It was
yeah,
not an easy task.
yeah, and you guys are 6-level parties. So then you've got adults, which go up to 800 years old, 100 to 800, and they're now huge size. And then finally, ancient, which are gargantuan size, easy for me to say. And those are over 800 years old. We
The
have a lot of,
gargantuan size on the board. How big do
yeah,
those sort of like are those? Because I know there's like medium and large, which is where you mainly if you get into sort of larger creatures
right.
as the stories progress. But
So
gargantuan, I don't think we've ever run into something like that.
uh, only maybe just before you joined the group, they fought an ancient dragon, an ancient black dragon. So medium is 5 by 5, large 10 by 10, huge 15 by 15, and gargantuan is 20 by 20 or bigger.
Good Lord.
So
Wow.
it's really big. And they have their breath weapon, which is the most dangerous, usually the most dangerous thing because they can fly, and the breath weapon has a long range that it can reach out to 100 feet, 120 feet.
Yeah.
They can stay at distance and hit you with it, sometimes multiple targets. and you have to make a saving throw. And even if you make it, you take half damage. So it's pretty nasty. And usually dragons will have about 5 to 6 of those for one encounter, 5 to 6 of those breaths. They also have frightful presence they can use, which can just scare people away just at the sight of them.
Did the dragon that just for context, that the dragon that we encountered on the weekend, did we ever have that as an effect at all? I don't recall.
No, because that is just with I think it's just adult. I'll double check, but I think it's just adult and ancient dragons that have the frightful presence.
Because that in itself is like, just if your party is like, hey, there's a dragon, then suddenly everybody decides, oh, you have to run away now.
Right.
Because I think it's like 120 feet or 100 feet. And being frightened
120
for like
feet.
A full.
Yeah, so
like that would be terrifying.
Adult and ancient dragons, 120 feet, the frightful presence. But your party on the weekend fought a young black dragon.
Yeah.
But just to put it into context, that acid breath from the black dragon, 11d8 acid damage. And that's just a young black dragon.
I would hate to run into a black dragon that was ancient. That would just be brutal.
Yeah.
Because my character was like charging in because the dragon must die. I must protect all the people in the party. And I think I got hit like twice, or no, actually I got hit 3 times with and I made my saves every time though. Otherwise I would have been like, I'm down. I'm up. Oh, I'm down again.
I think you still took 25 or 30 damage.
Easily per, yeah. Or actually, no, I got healed at one point. I forgot.
Yeah.
But yeah, it definitely was. Yeah, I mean, imagine that combined with that. I mean, it's just a game, and I like playing it, but it still scares me that it's like, you're just seeing claws of some dragon like just coming over the hill or something. You're like, oh, okay, all right, let's all run away now.
Well, then not only do they have those attacks, they also have claws, biting, tail attacks, and wing attacks sometimes. They also, the legendary level, they have 3 chances a day where they can just, if they fail a save with legendary resistance, they can just decide to make it 3 times.
That is just plain evil.
Yeah, they also have 3 extra attacks. They can take legendary actions after one of the player characters attacks. So they have all their actions, so they can attack with their breath weapon or claws, biting, tail, all that kind of attack. That's their turn, right? Then maybe your character goes. Then after your turn, they can make another attack. And then it's another character's turn, and then they can make another attack. And then another character, then another attack. Then it goes back again to their turn and they get their attack again. That's why those are legendary creatures, and that's why those are so tough.
That would be brutal. And especially like if isn't the wing attack, like when they flap their wings, it's like thunder clap or thunder wave or something, and they can knock the entire party down, and that would be
Yeah. So as far as dragon types, we have the chromatic dragons, which almost all of them are evil. So I'll go through a few here. The red dragon is known for its fire breath, lives in the mountains and hills. And these ones are greedy, violent, and impulsive. Then these are the most powerful regular red dragons. Then you have black dragons who usually live in swamps, ruins, and caves, and they have acid attacks with their breath. They're cowardly, scared of other dragons, and cruel. The interesting thing about this one, I used this a few years ago, and the party were sent to go hunt down this black dragon. And they were taking a boat to the area a forest where they thought the black dragon lived, which was true. But what they didn't realize is that as they were taking the boat, all of a sudden out of the water, the black dragon came out of the water. It's lifted their boat up, smashing it to pieces, and flew up into the air and took off to the forest. And all in unison, the players at the table went, It can swim. Yeah,
Yeah, they're kind of good at
that was one of
it.
my favorite moments as a dungeon master. Um, yeah, so now they're lying in the ocean with this wreck of the boat just off the coast, and the dragon's just flying away.
And then they have to go, who can swim? Who can't swim? Are we all
Yeah.
can we all swim?
So some of the dragons can do things like that. Um, the green breathes poison, usually lives in the forest, sometimes underground. They're bad tempered, very cunning, and they're liars. They like to talk. You've got blue dragons, which use lightning breath, usually live in the desert, sometimes on the coast, and they're vain but very patient and will play the long game. So if
Nice.
they're losing a fight, they'll just fly away and to fight another day. White dragons in frozen lands obviously use frost breath, and they're obsessed with food. They're not very smart. They're more like a beast. The most powerful chromatic dragon is Tiamat, the evil queen of dragons, the five-headed massive dragon who has her stats in the new dragon book. Um,
Nice.
she also has five consort dragons that are with her all the time of each of these colors. The opposing dragon to her, the only good chromatic dragon that I know of, is Bahamut. He's the good king of dragons. Um, she rules the first plane of hell, and Bahamut dwells in a great palace behind the east wind. And he's a
Oh,
platinum dragon. He's a spellcaster, and he's got 7 gold dragon guards with him at all times.
nice. Nice.
So, two dragons that are outside of that group are shadow dragons, which are born in the Shadowfell, or they're a regular evil dragon and then transformed into a shadow dragon. There's a Draco Lich, which is actually not a dragon, it's an undead creature. That's a dragon. And then the fairy dragon is a small cat like dragon, which is often a familiar for spellcasters. And they have a few little spells they can do. They're like they have butterfly wings. They're a very traditional fae kind of creature, and they easily could just be a fae instead of a dragon. The metallic dragons are the good ones. They also can shape change. So we mentioned in the Paladin episode
Yeah.
that one of my characters, his new love interest is a dragon, and before he knew she was a dragon, it was because she shapeshifted. And so you have gold dragons, which can live anywhere. They're very wise, but very, very serious and aloof. Silver dragons who live on mountain peaks up in the clouds, and they're very friendly and will assist other people. Then you've got bronze dragons, which live in the subterranean areas near water bodies, and they oppose tyranny, so they're kind of heroic as well. And then the copper dragons, which live in rocky areas, and they're tricksters, but they're not evil. Yeah, so that's all the
My
core.
armor's gone. What happened? You hear
That's the
hee
core
hee hee
dragon.
behind a tree.
Um, then we have made a bunch of dragons in our books. So Phelan has the dream dragon who breathes out a hallucinatory terrain. We have a storm dragon which can control the weather. A purple dragon, which is a very clever spellcaster, and then the Jabberwock, which is inspired by Mr. Carroll's Jabberwocky poem. Then in the city book, we have a draconian humanoid dragon creatures who can shape change into dragons, but they're evil. In Underworld, we have the lava dragon, the spores dragon, and the crystal dragon. Those are sort of self-explanatory. The crystal dragon, it breathes out a crystalline breath that paralyzes creatures. In the wilderness, our new book, we have the Knucker, which breathes out fog, and it's based on folklore from England. And then we have the ice dragon, which instead of just freezing you, also freezes you in place. The new book, which we were talking about, Phelan 2, which will be on Kickstarter next week, we have at least 2 dragons in that book. And one of them,
Sugar dragon. Oh, sorry, I
Yes.
just spoiled it.
Yes.
I just got all excited.
Yes. So the first one, I haven't finished the second one yet, but the first one, which is in the free booklet that comes with the Kickstarter, that is the Sugar Dragon. And if he was a daddy dragon, he could be a sugar daddy dragon.
This show just got explicit.
Yeah.
Um, uh, now, in some of the new books, you said that the dragons are underwhelming.
I would say the dragon book that came out last year, there's not a lot of really new um, interesting elements. It's great to have Tiamat stat block. Um, there's some cool things, and I would say most of the the really useful material in there is about dragons' personalities and their lairs. That is kind of, although you could do a lot of that yourself, but there are tables in that book. Fizban's dragon book. I can't remember the whole title.
Fizban's Treasury of Dragons. Yeah, yeah.
That's right. So there's some really useful tables with coming up with the dragon's personality and their lairs and their treasure hoards. So that's pretty cool. And one of the great parts about dragons is this, legendary hoard of treasure that most of them have. And one of the great things in the 5e monster manual, to give them credit, is that they go into great detail with each type of dragon about what would be in its hoard, and not just the treasure, but just other interesting things like for example, the blue dragons, which sometimes live near the coast, they could have things like pieces of ships that they've torn apart and just taken back to their lair. Like a mermaid carved on the front of the ship, and the ship's gone down in this battle, and then these adventurers walk in, and there's this hoard of treasure with a mermaid statuette there, right? So that's pretty cool. And dragons with their lairs, that's another great, factor, is that they can be in all these interesting places. You can have them in a mountain or in ruins or underwater even, or, on the top of a mountain. A cool part too is if you have a dragon that's in its lair, you actually can use lair actions. So here's an example for the green dragon. So if the green dragon's there, it could do things like it can actually use the roots and vines and have them come out to help the dragon itself to in some kind of fight to defend itself. It can also put a wall up of tangled brush, and it can also create magical fog. So that's if it's in its lair. Now, a legendary dragon has another level. It has regional effects. So these are even far before you get to the lair of the dragon. So, for example, with the green dragon, it can create thickets with labyrinthine passages that make it very difficult to get to its lair. Basically like in Sleeping Beauty when the prince has to fight through all the brambles that Maleficent has created. It's the same thing. It also can leave no evidence of its physical movement. So if you're tracking the dragon, the green dragon, a legendary one, it can actually get rid of all traces of its movement. So that would be pretty wild. And then a really fun one is that all the rodents and birds for 1 mile around an ancient green dragon, they serve as its eyes and ears.
That is very powerful because there are so many things that are going to be available for that purpose. Like that. Wow.
Yeah, like that dragon knows, he knows that the party is coming and he's going to be well prepared. And already you're dealing with an ancient dragon. So he's very smart, very powerful, and he knows you're coming, and he can potentially knows what you're saying.
That is, it's like the dragon that we encountered on the weekend could have been sitting around going, acting like a typical teenager, being like, they're going to be here tomorrow. Fine, I'll wait. Like,
Yeah.
didn't have
Yeah,
to
they have
really
so
do
much
much, but they'll
personality.
just get here.
And not
But it
only
is very cool.
dragons are can they be, they're so powerful in themselves, but many times they have minions like black dragons often are worshipped by lizard men. So you'll have a whole lizard man colony who's worshiping a black dragon, or you could have just powerful and evil NPCs that the dragon has made a deal with, and maybe they share their treasure with, or they've just enslaved. And they can
Yeah.
have multiple minions. Whenever you get a very intelligent creature, whether it's a dragon or not, there's the potential there to have other allies that could help it. And they're one of my favorite monsters. And I think you can overuse them, especially in a game called Dungeons and Dragons. But
Surprise!
if you use them sparingly and you really build them up, especially like like young dragons and wormlings, I will use them more often.
Yeah.
But the adult and the ancient ones, I build up the story about so the characters know about it for a long time. And when they finally face them, it is an epic showdown.
Well, I mean, that's exactly how it really works with Smaug in the Hobbit. I mean,
Exactly.
you don't really. It's like even actually the White Wizard. You've got him living in the tower, and he's got all of his minions, right? He's building an army and stuff like that. But it's those characters that get talked about by the main characters all the time, and you never see them. That talk about the dragon under the lonely mountain, terrifying, blah 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 blah. And then it was not until like the very end where it's like, "Hi, how are you? I'm going to eat you now." It's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
you're so terrifying." But the lead up has been like epic, and you couldn't have like dragons on the corner at a cafe having coffee hanging out. It just wouldn't work. It would cease to become Dungeons and Dragons. It would be Dungeons and those darn things we see all the time. So I
Yeah.
think I've only encountered in your adventures and the ones that you've run. I think we've only encountered dragons, or at least my characters anyway, in different adventures. I think maybe twice or three times. Um, and I think one of the most memorable was we were swimming to an underwater temple,
Hmm.
and there
Hmm.
was a gold dragon like hanging out in the bottom of the bottom of the lake or whatever it was. And it's like, "Hi guys, how's it going? Yeah, hi, how are you? Yeah." I was thinking, "Oh, we're screwed." And then it was like, "No,
Yeah.
no, it's a gold dragon." "Oh, gold dragon, okay." And then he was like, "Okay, well, here's the helpful information you need," and I got other places to be. And then he swam off, and I don't think we ever
Hmm.
saw him again. But that's kind of the really expectations for dragons being used in game, because yeah, I mean, they're either going to be helpful, like a silver dragon hanging out, or a couple of them. So hey, you
Hmm.
guys need some help? We'll totally like jump in and kick some
Hmm.
ass, and then we'll. But oh, geez, dragon reading book is the reading club. We got to get there. Off they go again. Because so I mean that's kind of the nice thing about dragons. Like I think it was only in Dragonlance where we had two characters riding dragons. I seem to remember. One of the villains and one of the angelic
Hmm.
characters whose names have long escaped my brain.
Hmm.
But again, the army was basically an army of dragons and or draconians, and but you didn't really see them. They were just kind of there. You saw evidence of them, and I think that's
Yeah.
the really nice thing about using them in game.
Yeah, you
For
can
sure.
really draw them out. They can be the big bad evil guy in a big campaign. Um, they can be, part of a big evil empire or alliance. And
Yeah.
yeah, I don't usually have writers, but I've done that a few times. And again, I save that for climactic moments.
Mhm.
Um, and I also don't usually have writers because I like to just usually use the pure dragon itself. Um, the writer is going to make it. It's going to be usually it's going to be quite a powerful NPC that's riding that dragon. So that's going to add
Oh
a
yeah.
whole other level of danger. Um, but we have done that in some of our stories, And recently, just a couple of weeks ago, you faced an adult white dragon with your 13th level party, and the fighter died, the fighter in the party, mostly because of breath weapons. Also because the fighter kept trying to use a wand because they thought it might help them, and it was just a wand of magic detection.
Oh God. Oh
So
look, the dragon's glowing. So
yeah,
great. Did we
yeah,
hurt it?
yeah. So that choice probably wasn't the best at that moment. Probably better to run. But yeah, I've used white dragons, black dragons, green dragon, a blue dragon once. I don't. I might have used a red dragon briefly. I think the party ran away from a red dragon actually.
That is
Um,
entirely possible. I do. I
yeah,
mean, again, it's so rare that we've actually run into dragons, in any respect, whether they're an antagonist or just hanging out,
right.
like the gold dragon on the bottom of the lake. Oh, hey, oh yeah, this is
Yeah,
the
yeah,
temple.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm out. See you guys later.
Yeah, and you do have a campaign right now we're doing where you're fighting a cult based around dragons. That's where you just
Yeah,
fought the black dragon, the young one. But that
yeah,
whole group, that whole cult keeps saying, "Praise Tiamat's glory." And
of course.
so, yeah, there's some evidence there that maybe Tiamat is behind everything, and that will be quite an interesting battle.
Tiamat is a jerk and needs to die.
She,
So, sorry, she.
yeah.
Actually, my vision of Tiamat is the one from the animated series back in the day. Where it's like you had the
Yeah,
multiple
yeah,
head
yeah.
thing, and I seem to recall her being. Actually, did they ever have had Tiamat speak? Maybe they did. I don't remember.
Um,
Um,
I think they did. Did you like that cartoon?
oh, when I was that age, of course. It was
Really?
the only thing that it was pretty much the first show
Yeah.
where I was able to see something in a game I was playing at the time, and that was a big deal. Uh, but I mean, I remember the DM, I remember a few of the characters, but ultimately it's gone. I just remember enjoying it. If I watched it as an adult, would I like it? Probably not. Probably not. There
Yeah,
needs to
I
be another
remember
D
as a
and
kid being
D
like,
animated show.
yeah, I remember like I watched it too, and I watched every episode, and it was like the first time it was like a very mainstream, um, thing for D&D. Gygax selling this TV series to Hollywood, and it was on with the Saturday morning cartoons. But I do remember as a kid, I mean, there were parts of it that were fun, but I do remember going, why is the dungeon master there? And this could be so good. Like why like I would have preferred if they'd just gone right into the Greyhawk lore and made it like a Greyhawk story. Um
Yeah, the lore I don't
yeah.
remember at all, like what they were actually doing and why.
I
Like
think they
the
just threw it around all over the place. Like they had I think there might have been a few mentions about things in Greyhawk. But the whole like two worlds thing, I usually like that. Like I love the Narnia series, for example. But the
yeah.
two worlds for that I thought wasn't super interesting, especially when you
Oh,
got to see it
that's right.
every
They were
time.
they
They
were
were
on
at
like a
a
roller coaster or something, and
yeah, they were at a fair, and there was the Dungeons and Dragons ride. And then when they went on
right,
this ride,
right.
they went into the world of Dungeons and Dragons with the Dungeon Master. So I thought all of that was kind of clunky. Um, but it was fun to have like you say, the game that you played and the game that you loved is actually here. Um,
Yeah.
and there were some interesting moments where I was like, oh, I could use that in my campaign. Um, but it was a long time ago. I must have been like 11 or 12 or something, maybe when
Yeah,
that
it was
came
it
out.
was on around that age, like I would say mid 80s ish somewhere. I'd have to look it up,
Yeah.
but I mean that's the thing is that a lot of these books about dragons, I'm glad that the Fizban one actually has not just dragons, but they have stuff around them, like the
Yeah.
minions and the layer information, because that
Yeah.
sort of stuff. That's a book I've yet to get. I should go and get that one. And but yeah, it's nice to actually be able to learn that kind of, or to learn there's those kinds of resources inside of an official printed manual, because I have to say that the bulk of the information, aside from what the dragons can do,
Mhm.
there's really no suggestions. A
No.
lot of suggestions about how to use them, how to utilize them in game, but I mean,
Yeah, there's
you
a bit of
kind of
that
pick it up
there.
over time.
Yeah, it's definitely. I think it's still more than the old books. Um, I think there's enough in there. I mean, they could have added more too, like you say. But there's a lot of interesting things. Especially, I really like those lair and regional effects. And
Yeah.
there's enough there, I think, to get the core of the dragon's personality. Usually, with a monster or an NPC, you don't need a whole book about this creature. You don't need paragraphs and paragraphs about them.
Yeah.
In practical terms, you just need a little bit of information to get at the core of their personality. And again, dragons are so much fun. It's one of my favorite monsters for sure. And there's just so many things you can do. The fact they can fly and they can fly so far, um, yeah, and that they have these range attacks. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, well, they're versatile. You can use them. A DM can use them in any way, or there's so many options that you have where, you could have a dragon that has, I don't know, an injured tail, so you can't use the, tail attack for whatever reason, or gets injured during the fight,
Right.
and but it's still not. It's I mean, we're talking about dragons here, but they're still not defenseless. They'll be able to, carve your armor off your body and eat you like a bunch of anchovies, really, really quickly.
Yeah.
But
Well, and it's interesting that, people who read The Hobbit years and years and years ago, they were in fear of this dragon. And then in the 80s, late 70s, early 80s, when D&D started, people learned, dragons were a big deal. And now, you know, into the 2020s, it has not changed.
yeah, and one thing about dragons too is that in all of the books that have been published and novels and things like that, uh, it always draws my eye when there's a dragon featured on the cover, and it's Larry Elmore, I think, is that his name?
Yeah.
Um, who for years has been painting covers for these books, and it always fills me with like a little bit of, a little bit of a glee moment when I see one. um, and people that do artwork that's very similar to his, where it's that sort of, it's got the
Yeah.
painting, like the DM's screen has got that big red dragon, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It just gives you that flavor, and it kind of gets you in the mood for, you know, writing down a cool adventure idea, or turning it around and being, you know what? Okay, that's inspired me to say, okay, we're going to encounter a dragon a couple of sessions from now, and I got to start laying the groundwork to, try and warn them this is going to happen. But then we might have a total party kill. You never know. It could happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's so
Yeah,
many
they're
cool
they're
things you can do.
legendary. Those legendary artists you talk about, like Larry Elmore, Jeff Easley, Clyde Caldwell, those three guys especially, they did all those paintings, all that art in the 70s and 80s, and still some of it today. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's some of the most famous dragons, especially, right away I think of all the Dragonlance covers.
Oh gosh, yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah,
Oh wow.
yeah.
Especially with some of the dragon. I think it's the second book in the second novel. They run into the dragon mountain, the big white dragon mountain with
Mhm.
all carved out of stone and stuff. I mean that, just like it's iconic. How else
Yeah,
can you really describe them? Really,
yeah.
it's in the name. Oh my lord! But I gotta say I'm excited for the sugar dragon. I gotta really say that I kind of want to know more, but I'm gonna wait until the book comes out. I'm not gonna, try and get insider info. I'm comfortable to wait, because it's gonna be exciting. I like it. I like what you're doing, man. I like what you're doing,
Thanks, man.
and more people need to go out and get ready for this Kickstarter.
Next
Monsters of
Tuesday.
Phelan 2, The Well of Dreams, next week. And next week, I believe that we're going to dive into a little bit of what's going on in that realm.
Yes.
So next week we're going to be talking all about the Kickstarter coming from Cawood Publishing for this next one, and I'm going to support it. I hope you guys support it because I have to say, as much as I love Wizards, a lot of the time they're coming out with stuff on a regular basis, but I find they're playing catch up to a game that's been around for a long time. It's like, oh hey, we should have a resource book about the thing that we had a publication 35 years ago. We should probably do another one or update it or that kind of stuff. And having the fact that the community around D&D is creating stuff for the game uh, at a high level as well. Hint hint, Cawood Publishing. Um, that I don't know, it just kind of gives you some more love into the game. So anyway, that's just how I feel about it. But until next week, thank you, Andrew, again, and we will
Thank
see
you.
you then. Bye,
Later.
everybody.